Let's go over some simple CSS and use some of the tools that I've provided for you. First off, let's discuss the part of CSS that allows you to create a website and format it without using tables, and also how to use selectors. Some of the simple CSS will also be included. First off, let's look at one of the areas. It's called a float. Open up your favorite browser and search for float CSS. And once you do that, you're going to see one that talks about the float property in W3 schools. Let's go there. Now, float is one of the areas that once you apply it, it works like a word processor. You apply it and tell it you want the information or the blocked area to go left or right. Anything below that blocked area will fill any of the adjoining space that it can. If there's not enough space, it simply stays below. So it takes into consideration what is below the blocked area. And remember, a blocked area is applying a tag that allows you to tell it a start and a stopping point, kind of like a div tag. Now let's go down and look, and you're going to find that it tells you what browsers support this. Also, as we go down, it tells you what property values you can use. For instance, if I want everything to float to the left, then I can put float : left and then apply it. This can be done inline, embedded, or in an external style sheet. Let's continue on down. I want you to look at the create a horizontal menu. So let's go there. Now notice that we have styles for all of the ULs, all of the anchor tags, and then the selector for a hover state for the anchor tags, and then another one for the LI. Now as we go down, we can see this is a very small site, and the tags are applied. Now let's go up and look at my links are inside a bullet list, and they're across the page, not down. Let's go change a few things. Now notice that I'm applying to the LI, which only affects the individuals, start to stop. If I apply it to the ULs, the UL affects the entire area, all the links. So let's go change a few things on the UL. Notice that I have it floating left. With a float, you normally also have a width on how wide you want the float applied to the blocked area. Since it's applied to the UL, it's across the entire area. So let's make the width 50% and then run it. And you're going to see that all the links only apply across 50%. Since I floated it, all the information below that can now come up does. Notice there's a big area here that's blank. That's because there's not enough room for the link 3 area, but there is enough room for the information below to go up, but still your links take up 50%. Okay, let's go back to 100% and let's float it right. We're back to the way we were, but notice that floating it left or right really does not make that much difference here, again, because the width is 100%. In order to see the effects, we have to change it back to a smaller width, and then we can see the information comes up. Since we floated to the right, all the information will go right next to our link. Let's go back. And run it. Okay, now let's affect the LIs, what's inside of each one. We're still the ULs across 100, but I want each link or each LI to take up a width of 25. And let's do pixels on this. Now we can run it, and notice we don't really have anything change about any of these. Again, we're doing pixels, but let's say we really want it to be a percent. Run it now. Again, we see nothing change. In order to apply these, we have to work with the float. So let's go and also apply a float. And make this, again, 25%. And run it. Now we can see the changes. Each LI is taking up 25% across 100%. Blocked area on the inside. Now, if I go in and also add something like a background color, you're going to notice that where does it apply? Because I already have a background color for the A tag. Run it. And notice that if anything does not change correctly, then again we have an issue. Notice between my background color, I've made an error. There should be a colon instead of a semicolon. Now let's run it. Notice the green in between. It's not above and below, but it's in between. Right now, around this entire area, we have padding of 0, margin of 0. Padding affects everything inside the blocked area. Margin affects everything outside. Now, on our float, we have a width. On our margin, let's change that to 10 pixels. How's that going to affect our block area? It puts 10 pixels all the way around. But we still have a float to the right. I'm sorry, to the left. Okay, and we're still taking up 25% of each. That's why you notice the green goes all the way out to the end. It looks like we don't have a margin, but we do. There's a lot of other things that you could notice around here. For instance, the border affecting the border right. I could tell it I wanted to affect the border right color, border right size, border right type. But instead, I know that I want to affect the entire border right, so I can tell it in a shortcut, my size, space my type, space my color. There's a lot of other things we could use to do this too. However, we'll stop with this one. And know that another way you can also look at the different area is called the position. So let's try and look at a position. We're on the float right now, all the way down. We'll find position. It's also an area that allows you to format a page. Notice here that with a position, it will always come with how far from the left and how far from the type do you want this affected. Now, as we go down, notice our values. The one thing about position that is important to analyze is that when you use the position property, it does not take any other content into consideration. It will go over the top of it and overlap if you set the values to do so. In order to look at this, again, try yourself. Notice the T of this on this line is hidden. That's because on our left, when we have a relative position, it's a negative, so it goes through. Now, if I add 1 to the top, notice what happens. When we look at this, it's relative. It's relative to what is ever placed. However, if I change the position to absolute and run it, notice how it becomes very close to each other. Let's make this a larger number. Let's change it to 40 and see what happens. Notice that it covers it up. That's because we have told it that the top, from the top margin, is only 40 pixels, which is right on top of another line of code. That's one of the important things to remember about position. Now, there's a lot of other areas we could work with, but let's stop and start working with doing it ourselves from scratch. All we're going to have to start with is a file with existing HTML code. When you have time, go to the next video. Do it at the same time as I do it. If you need to pause it to catch up, and we'll continue on.